Hello, my name's Andrew and welcome to All About Russia. Today we're going to be learning about the largest country on the face of the planet, the Russian Federation. As this is the first episode, we're just giving a brief summary today, but what we are going to be answering is exactly what the Russian Federation is, who lives there, and how it came into being. The Russians are an East Slavic people who historically have lived here but can now be found all over the globe. But still mainly here. And here, and here, and there, and there, and there, and here, and even here. But we will of course explain this in a later episode. The Russians have a word, Rossiyanin, meaning all of those who, even though not ethnically Russian, identify as Russian culturally. Such as this man, and this woman. Now, all of these people live in the Russian Federation. So at this point, it's worth clarifying exactly what a federation even is. A federation is a collection of states under a central government who act independently internally, i.e. amongst themselves, but outward operate as one nation. The Russian Federation is an asymmetrical federation. Now, what that means is that whilst the different states are equal when dealing with each other, some will have more powers than others under the constitution. An example of this is the republics, who retain the right to have their own national language on the same footing as the Russian language, as well as the right to have their own constitution, should they so wish. The oblasts, by contrast, do not have this power. As this is a federation, all of the subjects are bound by the Russian constitution. This is a written document which guarantees the rights of the state, the rights of the citizen, the rights of the judiciary, as well as the powers of the president. Now, interesting side note here, the powers of the president are guaranteed by the constitution. And who guarantees the constitution? The president. We will explain a little bit more about this in a later episode. How Russia is governed is a little bit complicated, but power is split into three branches. The president, who is the supreme commander-in-chief and head of the state, also has executive power to make a decision if it needs to be made very quickly. The legislative branch operates much like a parliament here in the UK, with two houses, an upper house, or the State Federation Council, and the lower house being the State Duma. Now, the role of this is to assess and either pass or veto bills that propose into being made into law. This means if, for example, something is passed through and it's deemed to be against the Russian people or unconstitutional, they can of course reject it. But a bill has to pass through both houses to be made into law. The judiciary are the third branch of power. They have the right to deem something unconstitutional and illegal if they feel that is correct. Now, whilst they have been intended to be an independent third power to check abuses in the other two, historically that has not been the case. In fact, several criticisms of the Russian judicial system is that there is a lot of outside pressure and corruption from within. Historically, the Russian president has put pressure on both the judiciary as well as the legislative branches. Now, this may seem like a blatant abuse of power, but to fully understand this, we have to look at very recent Russian history. Other channels have done an excellent job of explaining Russian history, so I will not go into great detail on that. However, for our purpose, we need to know that the Russian Federation came out of the chaos of the 1990s. Now, whilst it did also have this and this, it did have this and this. Now, I will explain this in more detail in a later episode, but essentially what happened was this. When the USSR was dissolved by Mikhail Gorbachev, there were a lot of angry people at this action, a lot of communists still in power in government. The changes he was trying to bring into Russia were met by stiff opposition, and there was an attempted coup. The communists who had attempted the coup were only barely defeated thanks to the work of Boris Yeltsin and the people of Moscow. Whilst not all communists were involved in the coup, the fact it happened in the name of the Communist Party of Russia had left the president very wary of having any communists in government. So much so that when Boris Yeltsin came to power quickly afterwards, one of the first things he did was held a referendum decided whether he should have sweeping new powers to make changes to the constitution. Now, there is a debate over whether this was the correct 50% turnout that was required for the vote. However, statistically speaking, that is what came out, and therefore the changes were made to give him such sweeping new powers. The Republic was founded on the 25th of December 1991. The Russian Federation consists of 85 subdivisions, which can be further categorized as oblasts, republics, krais, federal cities, autonomous okrugs, and one autonomous oblast. This confusing mishmash is a combination of imperialism, Soviet ideology, as well as some peculiar administrative decisions. The Russian Federation is huge. It comes in at over 6.5 million square miles, which is just shy of double the size of the United States. That's how ridiculously large it is. About 13% of the land is covered by seas and lakes, and over 13% by agriculture, with about half the mainland being made up of forests. As Russia is so huge, it spans 11 different time zones. So to put this in context for you, when someone in Kaliningrad is getting up for work in the morning at say 7, someone in Chamkatska has finished work at 5 and is going home. That is how huge the time difference here is. As Russia is so big, a large portion of the Eurasian steppe passed through it. That is the steppe that goes from Hungary to China. Within Russia, there are many huge mountain ranges, such as the Caucasus, Ural and Altai mountains. Fun side note, the tallest mountain in Europe is in Russia, and that is Mount Elbrus near the Caucasus. Russian rivers such as the Ob, Don and Volga rivers are seen as arteries of the nation and have historically been used both for commerce and for spreading people and ideas, both historically and even today, with the Volga River actually being the longest river in Europe as well. Sea resorts and beaches are popular in Russia, with many to the southwest, so along the Sochi coast as well as now in the Crimean Peninsula. Russia borders 14 different countries, 2 more if you accept Abkhazia and South Ossetia, as well as the United States and Japan if you accept water borders as well. Their longest border, however, is with Kazakhstan, and going at over 7,500 kilometers. Perhaps unsurprisingly for a country of this size, Russia is both multi-ethnic, multicultural, as well as hosts dozens of different religions. Now, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned the term Rossiyani, meaning those who, whilst not ethnically Russian, associate themselves culturally as being Russian. Russia has 185 different declared ethnic groups. Not all of them, though, will have their own republic. In future episodes, I will explain more about the different ethnic groups of Russia and why not all of them have their own republic. However, for the moment, it's worth bearing in mind that the bulk of the ethnic groups in Russia have historically been brought into the Federation by a mixture of conquest and Russification. This is particularly true of the people of the Caucasus region as well as in Siberia. However, this has not always been the case, and there are dozens of ethnic groups which have a long history of friendship and integration with the Russian people, so much so that today it can be quite hard to tell who is an ethnic Russian and who is not. As is the case in much of the world today, a native Russian could simply be an amalgamation of several different ethnic groups, however culturally identifying as Russian. On this channel, we are going to be learning more about the Russian people and lands, their cultures and traditions, and hopefully learning a little bit more about the Russian mindset as well. My name is Andrew, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Пока!